Good afternoon, gorgeous souls. I am just checking that I am live on Instagram as well. Trying streaming out for the first time. How is everybody? It has been a wild, I would say, past 3 or 4 days. And one of the things that I want to bring to the table is let's talk about Ascension and Ascension symptoms, because so many of us are caught up in often consuming so much information that we get so emotionally overwhelmed or mentally overwhelmed that we then also just cannot see the gift in what's actually happening for us all at the moment. So Ascension symptoms are things like dizziness, headaches, feeling really wiped out and tired, or the opposite, you're like full of life and full of energy and buzzy, but so many downloads. And it's like almost there's this spectrum you're swinging on. And this is really, really common. And it's really common to have things like purging, so upset stomachs out of nowhere where it's not something you've eaten, having really, really huge, very extra visual dreams, noticing old body aches and pains and sensations coming up. It's actually really common to have old injuries that suddenly flare up and you've done absolutely nothing, you don't know where it's come from. So what's actually going on here? And I think this is really like, if we strip it all the way back, this is where we find our power. I just want to double check. Yes, I am on Instagram. This is what I want to strip back, because I went through a really rapid experience in 2015. And it really meant that I had no choice but to master the situation I was in. And it really forced me to create some really strong foundations. And I want to share with you a few stories here. So firstly, it forced me to create a process by which I was prioritizing my physical wellness. This is one thing where for the next wave of those that are awakening at the moment, if you have a really strong foundation of physical wellness, so you are looking after your body by, nutrition, you're maybe looking at how much movement you're getting good sleep. Those kind of foundations are massive, because what you're going through is a process whereby more of your consciousness, your body, and your energy fields are being switched on. And if you can imagine, there's a drainage pipe, one that hasn't been used for like absolute years. So it's not shiny, clear, and operating fully. It's actually dense and blocked. And there's stuff in there that basically needs to kind of be pushed through. So as we're going through this awakening, we've got two things going on. And to most people in humanity, they're kind of unconscious to this, but this is the key. Everybody that is walking on this earth has their feet on the earth. We are connected through our lower chakras into the planetary grids. The planetary grids were by design meant to mean that energy, codes, frequency, intelligence would basically connect us into the earth grids. That would then allow that consciousness, that grounding, that connection to the earth to be part of the energetic system that is what we are anchoring into. So often when we're going through an awakening process, we haven't actually been working on opening up not just our chakras or our meridians, but we haven't been working on the light body. And the ascension process is going to take you really to clearing out this pipe. And when we've got all these shifts happening on the earth at the moment, more energy is coming up from the earth, but more energy is coming in through the atmosphere, which is why we're seeing the Schumann resonance going, wild over the past few days. But I want to share, it's been like this since 2015, certainly when I started watching it, but way on, beyond that. So that means that we know that when there's extra energy hitting the planet, it again is helping us clear the pipe, shall we say. But because most of us walk around unknowing that there are parts of our consciousness and our being that are either not open, not clear, and not in a harmonious state to receive both from the earth and from the above, basically the atmosphere, the field around us, we're just not in harmony to receive the extra energy that's happening. And remember, energy, light and sound, it holds code, sacred geometry, its frequency, its intelligence. And when it starts affecting our DNA, we then activate basically the process of clearing a different level of the pipe. So often we'll be activated by others. We'll work on one particular area at one time because certain memories, or we'll be curious to start exploring a particular area about ourselves, or we'll have an experience like the end of a relationship, the end of a job, or suddenly we're in a real position of scarcity and we're forced to look at our root chakra and our sacral chakra because we're looking at what's our relationship with money? What's our relationship with abundance? What's our connection to the body? Where do all these beliefs around scarcity come in? And actually, if I know that it's possible, because I'm seeing out here that others have this reality, how can I create that for myself? And often the heart chakra gets blown wide open, often through an awakening, either by connecting with a soulmate or somebody like a twin flame, or we're being activated because of collectively we're now on an ascension timeline. So on many different angles, we're being all supported and influenced to wake up. Waking up means understanding that it's more than just this physicality that we've got to think about. What I noticed myself was when I started on that pathway of the ascension process, which really was this ascending past just the physicality, really going deep into clearing that pipe, shall we say, the inner channel, which then gave me access to building my light body, which was really where all of my, psychic abilities, the healing, the getting on path, basically, the self-discovery on a much deeper, more multidimensional angle of who I was, really switched on. So bear with me just 1 second. There we go. Sorry, plug that in. So what this means is it can be really, really confusing because there's so many messages out there. And just yesterday, I paused for a moment and I looked at, there was somebody that looked at astrocartography and they're looking at, the charts and different places to be, essentially to be living and what's going to be happening in the next 2 years. And that person's message was, don't bother doing anything pretty much, hold back, put your feet up. It's the end of the year. You're going to have a busy next couple of years. The next person was really tuned into their belief systems, which was more around the astrology of what is happening at the moment based on present kind of astrology concepts. But I want to really strip this back because when I went through my process, I wasn't even using social media. So I wasn't actually taking on all of these other opinions and belief systems. Therefore, it forced me to really hone in on some really key relationships with myself. Connecting to my higher self. Your higher self is not just there. Your higher self is at a higher station of yourself. So that means we have to clear the pipe and get used to forging that relationship to connect with that consciousness. So every single day, I found a process of clearing my energy every morning, even if it meant at the time I was clearing it on the bus to work. I had resets. So if I got triggered, or I ended up feeling overwhelmed by the environment I was in, or the meeting I was in, or a busy tube, or whatever I'd been doing, a commute where I might have been touching 600 people just by wandering through stations and spending an hour, getting through crowds. I knew that energetically I felt different from when I got on the train to when I got off, because I was ending up, my energy was getting mixed in with all these other people's thoughts and their frequency. So I was beginning to learn about energetic boundaries the hard way often, and knowing that when I was in those environments, my thoughts would change because essentially, I was having to learn that there were tears in my energy field. There were things that I was taking on that wasn't mine. I was learning really these foundations. So it meant that I knew as soon as I got to work, I would go and do a reset, clear everything from that commute out, bring myself back into alignment. So I was plugged into higher self, soul, and source, and get used to what does it feel like to be really, really solid in my body, in my energy field expanded, and my heart opened in a day-to-day experience in the office. That was my initiation. And during that process, I'm dealing with people at very different frequencies to myself. Some that were, used to pushing others around, that was their abuse of power, and I would feel it energetically. So I was really learning this initiation of really the personality constructs, the shadow, how that interacts with us day to day. That's on top of considering most people are scrolling now. So they're taking on lots of like subconscious material, energetic material, just by scrolling. And I didn't have that at the time. But what it did is it really highlighted to me the importance of getting so clear about what is mine, what is the trajectory that I'm wanting to move towards, and what am I being guided to? Because I realized the more that I got sucked into somebody else's drama or their story or whatever they were doing during the day, it really pulled me away from myself. And I realized that I had what's called a leaving pattern. And this connects to disassociation. It connects to childhood wounding that wasn't healed at that time. And it meant that I could end up getting quite easily distracted or pulled into other things. But that's what most empaths are doing. So, of course, things felt overwhelming because I was feeling everything, because I was kind of too busy in other spaces that I shouldn't have been. And I didn't at the time know how to really clear that energy, set a very strong boundary, but also start to heal the different parts of myself that was creating a kind of bring me out of integrity with my energy system. And you know, often will learn the hard way, being really wiped out at the end of the day, then knowing if I clear my energy, suddenly my energy's back. So I started creating protocols that I would use, like in the loo at work or after a meeting, or when I was traveling lots, you know, going through busy airports. I would then start to do these different protocols. And I made them really simple because essentially, you know, this was learning, as most people are, through the experience of living a busy life and interacting with lots of other people. And the more that I did that, the easier it became. And it became a complete go-to. It wasn't a debate. I would say, hand on heart, over the past decade, I've probably gone no more than 1 or 2 days in a whole decade without clearing my energy in one way or another. And this doesn't mean that I was relying on sage or anything like that. I'm talking about knowing the power of my voice, the power of working with my energy field, knowing what is mine, what isn't, knowing that if I'm going through a big piece of stuff that was coming up, you know, one part of my healing journey was flashbacks of trauma from the past. Then I would have that experience of the trauma running through me, the memories, the sensation, the energy. But then I had 300 past lives. And just as things are, you know, happening from our childhood, those soul fragments that needed to be reintegrated and needed me to do the past life healing and the karmic clearing all came up at once. So what was happening was I was being forced to, if you imagine, clear that pipe very quickly. Otherwise, I would be dizzy, I'd be really distracted, or I wouldn't be able to sleep, and I would be feeling really ungrounded. I was being initiated to force me to put in place energetic hygiene standards, regardless of what was going on in my day-to-day, so that I could function. And then realize that the biggest gold from all of this was that essentially whatever happened, I could take myself from that absolute overwhelm, from a trigger that was pulling up loads of stuff from whatever situation I'd been in, even if I was at work in front of lots of people, and I could take myself into my empowered self, bring myself back into alignment. And what I realized was there were roughly about 3 protocols that I created. One was a reset, took a few minutes, meant that I could get even psychic attack out of my field or the perimeter of my field. Then there was what I would do as an alignment. So to make sure that I was charging up my field, coming into the anchored state I needed to be, but I was also incorporating my light body, because that is part of your magnetic field. When you're going through an ascension process, every time you're healing something, you're opening your field even more to receive more light from above and energy from below. So you start to actually build out your light body through the healing work. So most people, if they're not doing that proactively, will not be operating at their fullest potential. And when we're talking about being magnetic, when you come from a place of alignment, meaning that channel's open, your intentions are coded in the channel, and you're expanded, people notice your light. They feel you. They feel that friction and that energy. If you do that every day, not only do you gain a level of mastery, but it becomes second nature. You know when something's come into your field, you know when, ultimately there's energy or thought forms or projections of others, because they affect the frequency and the clarity and your, how much energy, your vibrancy. So this is really moving into like coherence of mind, body, soul, and emotions, and knowing that they all correlate to different levels of your energy field, different levels of your energetic system, and they affect your thoughts and your feelings and your perceptions. So when we're really looking at coherence, which is bringing all of that into, coherent state, this is something that through the ascension process, if you took the time to do those 2 steps, everything would shift for you. Because the reason you're getting the purging and the imbalance from these energetic things that are going on is because you're not working with your system, your body, to do the clearing. You can bypass the ascension symptoms by introducing protocols like this. And that's what, ultimately, this isn't about disappearing off to the cave like many of the ancients used to. This is about having real world tools that assist you on not only when you're feeling amazing and keeping at that state, but also recognizing that you are going to be called to heal stuff. Healing something, there's one stage which is feeling it and conscious awareness. But most people aren't aware that unless you have gone into the soul level, i.e., there is a part of your soul frequency that needs to be brought back in. That's the unification process. Once that part's done, that's you completed that cycle energetically. And that's when you're in a position to start thinking about new mindset, belief systems. When we only focus on one part, which might be an emotional release, or we're constantly feeling triggered, so we're constantly trying to reset our nervous system, it's like almost starting a washing machine cycle and only doing a quarter of the way. Of course, your clothes aren't going to be clean. You're going to have to put the cycle back on again, and you keep on going back and back and back because it's never quite finishing what needs to happen. So if we know that this isn't to say you need to go in and do the deep, deep work every single day, but there might be periods where you are called to. This is part of the spiritual initiation. Your soul wants to be on its path and purpose that it came here to align itself to. And often, especially as we're going through this massive precipice of change, it will often be a period where you've got lots of layers coming up quickly so that you can actually elevate. And it's not just emotional release of everything. It's understanding the soul perspective of it, but it's also being able to recognize there is a part of your light essence that needs to get brought in, and that will stabilize you at a higher frequency. So often you then find you're not bumped about so much by the collective shadow that's getting brought up, because that is affecting all of us. And you're not affected so much by the extraplasma, all the light that's hitting the earth and ourselves. These tools are key because they are essentially helping us process both the inner world and rebuilding the template of the light body. And when we do that, that's where we get really switched on with our healing abilities. We get much more tuned in and our downloads become more frequent, and we can start to trust higher levels of consciousness, teams, our higher self, to really guide us through our day-to-day. For example, really important if you're a psychic, a healer, or you're working with groups, is that you know that energetically there are certain protocols that need to be followed so you are not entangled with your clients. And this isn't just on a mental level. There's pluggings in on the astral plane. There's pluggings in on different levels of being. So it requires a deeper dimension of kind of awareness so that we can really thrive without actually taking on everybody else's stuff. Additional to this, there's a new wave of star seeds that have really been awakened. A lot of them actually have really strong foundations with physical wellness, because since 2020, a lot of people have been taking care of their health a lot more. So there's those kind of foundations, the biohacking, the awareness of the circadian rhythm, beginning to be more aware of, the female cycle. That foundation is amazing, but it doesn't detract from the next level, which will be really integrating these other pieces. So how do we work with the other energies and the other things that are coming up, knowing it's not just mental, it's spiritual. And this is really where having a bit of a roadmap as to what's going on, having clear energy protocols, knowing that you are empowered to get rid of stuff like, psychic attack, or when you start feeling other people's energy, that deeply creates another level of self-trust. And self-trust is so important, and your commitment to yourself really continually builds that relationship through an awakening process, where often many of us are healing from childhood woundings, where we maybe didn't have the strong foundations or the parenting we need. We're being called to really implement that for ourselves through this process, which means that having protocols and ways that we can really thrive means that actually we can still show up and thrive regardless of what is happening. So from over a decade of going through these processes and supporting others, I've created something called the Great Awakening Unification Process. And one of the foundations of this is about the energy protocols for energy hygiene, to understand what's going on with the energy body and the different layers of what's happening. We also have something called a soul matrix, which is the 12-tree grid. And that's another piece for those that are often further down the line with their awakening, but it's to know that there's a re-architecture piece with that, meaning on Earth, we have had experiences where our energetic systems have been hijacked. So they don't work in the way that we might see it in a textbook. That's why knowing ourselves, because we know what it feels like, we can track the energy in our own fields, we know how to take care of ourselves through the energetic hygiene, means that when things are not working or flowing correctly, we can track it and understand it. And that's really stepping into that next level mastery. And that's really where we need healers and psychotherapists and those that are working intuitively to understand this additional layer. And this will be in, coinciding with healing from timelines from Lemuria to Atlantis, and understanding the impacts of things like the Lyran Wars and stuff whereby the energetic and the DNA template of humanity was negatively influenced. So that means, we have to consider that as we enter a period of more multidimensional awareness and people are connecting into lots of different things, it also activates that within ourselves. And the same goes for certain past lives. We start to draw that consciousness into our soul stream and experience it in the now. So it's not just a outside that happened to me a long time ago. When we're connecting in with something, we're allowing that consciousness stream to start to flood into the field. That's not a bad thing, but it's knowing that there's often healing. There's some lessons there. There's things that we can learn from it. And that is how we get the massive consciousness shifts, because we start to create a new template that we can access. So whether you are somebody that's new on the ascension process or somebody that has been out there at whatever level of your kind of evolution, there's always going to be a deeper dimension to what's been going on. And we're going to find that there are next level missions, next level kind of frequency bands that are available for us. But this is where knowing that there is a process by which, if you want to go to the next frequency band, if you want to take that quantum leap, you've always got this kind of upper ceiling, which is the pieces in between that are going to be part of the healing work in order to accelerate you. And this takes it out of the linear goal setting. The linear goal setting is still really foundational. And I see a lot of people that are more on the kind of starseed, high consciousness, not really having much grounded structure, which we actually kind of need when, and it not rigid, but a foundation, somewhere to anchor the really high vibrational downloads, the beauty of what you're experiencing in a way that actually anchors you and anchors that intelligence and that wisdom into the now, but also into the planetary grids. So we are all on different levels of our mission, and I'm going to be sharing more and more around what's kind of happening in the kind of starseed communities, especially around the planetary grids over the next couple of days. So I'm going to be going live at some point each day. So, follow me on YouTube, or make sure that you are following me on Instagram. This will, I think, show up in my lives on YouTube as a recording, but I'm going to be sharing more of these pieces. And I'm also going to share the link to the the program, which I'm guiding live at the moment. And it also includes over 200 pages of my book. I decided to turn my book into a guide, a teaching manual, and a highly coded initiation journey, so that you, through seeing all the different layers I went through and what I had to basically alchemize, understand, the mistakes, all the stuff, it's in there. So you can read through that, and that will then help you. But also at the end of it, each chapter, there's a specific questions that you will go through, and then I've given you the tools to actually go away and do the clearing work. But week by week at the moment, we're going through a ceremony. So some of you may or may not have heard of the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records, really, when we're looking at forming our teams, our spiritual teams, your Akashic Record teams are really, really some of your foundation teams to start building with. Why? Because rather than relying on the psychic or the healer or watching this or whatever else, forming that relationship with your Akashic Record teams means that you start to trust how to gather the information you need on your own soul path and purpose. Because not everybody is able to access the information because they just haven't even been through the process themselves. So know that the more that you build that relationship, the more that you understand the different teams, and also how to petition, how to make changes amongst your own soul journey, gives you your power back. You're no longer reliant on people that may not actually be going to the depths that your soul needs you to go to. And it means that essentially you are claiming a level of sovereignty over your own ascension pathway and journey. So last week we did an opening ceremony, and that was to awaken that ascension template, that ascension temple within, with the specific teams, with particular chambers or temple rooms, and different guides that are actually being brought in for the initiation of this next following 6 weeks. This is to say, every time somebody has an experience of wanting to manifest something new, heal something new, they're going through an upgrade, they are accessing, past lives or ancestral trauma or whatever else, the process I'm leading you through is the one that you can take again and again and again. I'm taking you through it and teaching it and allowing these people to experience it so that you have a framework and a particular team that is going to work with you for it. So you are not reliant on the outside. You're learning to trust yourself, trust your guidance, because we're setting it up in a pristine space. Do you need to go off and do an Akashic Record course in order to gain self-mastery around using it? No, but you do need to come with an open heart and know how to have a clear channel and a clear field, because anything that you're accessing in the unseen, essentially you need to know what you're connecting in with. So that takes time, discipline, mastery, and that's where the beauty of this process is, that you have direct doors open to all of these specific teams that will give you the information, the healing, the upgrades, the guidance, the support you need. But also it's knowing that our power is, we get to choose how quickly we initiate. So we get to choose if we want to go deep in, and we want to go deep in healing our mother and father wounds, we can take that to the Ascension Temple within our Akashic Records, and we can work with those teams and get them to set something up for us so that we walk that initiation, because we're ready to end a chapter of basically being the generational liberator. We want to end that. And to do that, we have to go through the healing process, the alchemy process. We have to understand the different layers of what was going on. If we want to heal our relationship with money, the Akashic Records are going to be able to tell you what you've agreed about money, what your ancestors have handed down to you about money, and what you're holding from other past lives that's affecting you. They will also be able to tell you certain guides you may have that are ancestral connected, that are influencing your money. Everything that you've ever done, thought, spoken is all logged in the Akashic Records. You just need to have the relationship, the connection open, and start to ask the right questions, and you will get the information. This is the initiation of us to have this higher self in physical form, is that it's not just the higher self that's contracted with you to support you. It's many, many different teams. So these teams can also help you on a very deep level do something like a realignment. So they can help you when you've got really deeper pieces that are influencing your energy field. So just as I mentioned, you've got a reset, you've got a daily realignment. You've also got another way of working with your energy field, which is to work with certain teams that have expertise that can see what you cannot see in the 3D, because they're not restricted by this dimensional plane, and they can tell you what's going on with, why you're suddenly getting pain in your back, why suddenly an old injury is coming up again. They can tell you what happened, where that comes from, what it's related to, so that you have spiritual energetic knowledge that means you can then take the right action for healing in the 3D. That might be physical rest, it might be a detox, it might be you need to go and do something else, it might be you actually need to go and do some deeper healing on something because it's manifesting as a physical element to show you it. So this is where the Akashic records, especially when you're working alongside different teams and your healing teams and also your higher self, means you start to really trust the information you're getting. It also means you can start asking and checking on information as well. So this isn't to bypass the 3D or bypass the mind, but it is to start to take back your power on spiritual guidance, on energetic intelligence, and knowing that your power comes by taking that responsibility of your energy field. The minute you start building on that, you won't need to go off and probably work with so many different people who are all at their different stages of journey. You start to come from the space of, I'm empowered to be able to get this far with myself. If I'm still not able to move forwards, then I can go and get the support. Then I can ask someone to see what I cannot see. Then I can work with somebody who's ahead or has been through these many initiations, and they're going to help me get through that next level. Rather than this weird psychic codependency thing that I see really happening, where people are wanting others to fix them or rescue them. If we do that in the 3D with other people, it doesn't work out well. If we do that in the energy realms, it really doesn't work out well. This is why the foundations are, we have to have conscious awareness. This is new material. We've got to be taught it. We've got to experience it. Then we start to practice it. Then we make it our own. That's the mastery. That's the sovereignty. And if you can learn from somebody's lessons and you can learn from that side of unfiltered teaching, it's a massive accelerator because you're getting access to my codes. So this is all getting brought together in this program. And I'm going to pop the link below. If you have any questions, then reach out. But if you are experiencing ascension symptoms, you do not need to go through it and be battered about. You do not need to put your life on hold because it's a certain transit, or you do not need to hold back. Remember, everything is constructed through many different belief systems in the 3D. The person that isn't even aware of that stuff and is tuned into their soul and tuned into source and is making their decision on that, they're the one that are going to move from that, because they're not allowing so many other people's energy and influence into their life decision plans. This is where calling back our power really also means discernment. And discernment comes with self-trust. Self-trust comes with having to navigate, where certain beliefs and reactivity and things comes from. And that's really where the mastery is, because we start to meet ourselves in where there are edges of ways that we need to learn to do things differently. So through all of this, you can really, really switch this stuff on and really, really move quickly. When you do not have energetic stuff in the way, the veils are lifted and you can get real clear vision on the next step and the opportunities. And so many people are feeling really lost at the moment. Like, what's my purpose? I don't feel good in this anymore. Start aligning to soul. The minute you say yes to soul purpose, to cleaning this stuff up, everything gets moved and then you can move forwards. Consider that the feeling of being lost and whatever else that's going on is part of the process. Often it's a dark night of the soul. We're not meant to stay in dark night of the soul forevermore. So take your power back. You start to be the initiator of your soul path and purpose. And this is what I want to show you how to do. So sending you lots of love. I'm going to be popping on here again tomorrow. And if you have any questions, pop them in the comments of wherever you're seeing this, and I will respond personally. Take care. Bye-bye.